It was a crazy Saturday afternoon, and we had decided to spend it playing a few rounds of Fortnite. I was sitting comfortably on the couch, my controller in hand, while Ghost Meowscles was perched on the arm of the couch, watching the screen intently. We were both on a roll, getting eliminations left and right. Ghost Meowscles was especially ruthless, pouncing on opponents with his claws and taking them down quickly and efficiently. I was no slouch either, sniping enemies from a distance and using my building skills to protect myself in the final circles. After a few intense rounds, we finally got a victory royale. We both cheered and high-fived each other, feeling a rush of adrenaline and excitement from the win. To celebrate our victory, we dug into the cupcakes I had baked the night before. The cupcakes were moist and fluffy with a perfectly sweet and creamy vanilla frosting on top. We savored each bite, enjoying the taste and texture of the dessert after our intense gaming session. As we ate the cupcakes, we shared stories about our favorite Fortnite matches and moments. We laughed and joked, feeling a sense of happiness and contentment in each other's company. Ghost Meowscles suddenly remembered the movie we had watched for family movie night the previous evening, Twister. He was a big fan of the movie, and he particularly enjoyed the dramatic weather scenes and the intense special effects. We started chatting about Twister, discussing our favorite parts of the movie and talking about our favorite characters and moments. We talked about how the special effects had held up over time and how the movie had captured the thrill and danger of tornado chasing. Ghost Meowscles, still a little spooked by the movie, even mentioned how he had had dreams about tornadoes last night. Ghost Meowscles told me that he had been inspired by the movie to go storm chasing himself, but he emphasized that he wanted to do it with me above all else, because he loved and cared for me so much. He knew it was a dangerous hobby, but he felt that facing the danger together would bring us closer and create unforgettable memories and experiences. I was touched by his words, feeling a sense of warmth and affection for him. I knew he loved me, but hearing him say it so earnestly and vulnerably really drove it home. I smiled and nodded, telling him that I would go storm chasing with him in a heartbeat. We hugged each other tightly, feeling a sense of comfort and contentment in each other's arms. Our lips met in a gentle yet passionate kiss, a physical expression of our love and affection for one another. After sharing a few moments of affection, we got up and started to prepare for our storm chase adventure. We packed some bottles of water into a cooler and loaded it into the back of Ghost Meowscles' white Hummer. With everything ready, we got into the car and buckled our seat belts. As we drove towards the store, we talked excitedly about what we needed to get for our storm chase adventure. We had a list of supplies in mind, things like portable weather radios, a good camera to capture the action, and gear to keep us safe in the unpredictable weather. We pulled the Hummer into the parking lot of the store and found a spot close to the entrance. We got out of the car, feeling a sense of anticipation and excitement for the adventure we were about to embark on. We walked into the store, grabbing a shopping cart, and heading towards the section where the weather and outdoor equipment were kept. We filled the cart with the items on our list: a weather radio, a high-quality camera, and a few other essentials for storm chasing. In addition to the essentials, we also grabbed a few more items that would be useful for documenting our storm chase. We picked up a tornado probe filled with sensors, a state-of-the-art radar scanner laptop computer, and another video camera to capture our adventures from different angles. With our shopping cart loaded up with all the necessary storm chasing equipment, we pushed it towards the checkout area. As we waited in line to pay, we looked over the items one more time to make sure we had everything we needed. Finally, it was our turn to check out. We placed all our items on the conveyor belt and waited as the cashier scanned and bagged them. The total was quite hefty, but we didn't mind. We knew this was an investment in our adventure and safety. As we paid for the items, we couldn't help but feel a sense of giddy excitement. We were really doing this. We were actually going to go storm chasing together. The thought of it made our hearts race and our adrenaline pump. With all the equipment paid for and packed in bags, we headed back outside to the Hummer. We loaded everything into the trunk, making sure everything was secure and easy to access. Once everything was packed, we got back in the car, both of us feeling a bit like real-life storm chasers. Once we were both settled in the car, I got on the passenger side and got to work setting up the radar scanner laptop computer on the dashboard. I connected it to the vehicle's power source and turned it on, watching as the screen lit up with a display of the local weather patterns. I started scrolling through the radar screen looking for any signs of potential storms in the area. My eyes scanned the screen, paying close attention to the various colors and symbols that indicated different weather patterns. I could see a few clusters of clouds that seemed promising, but I wanted to keep looking to see if there was anything more solid to focus on. My eyes widened as I spotted a storm on the radar, about 30 miles west of town in the open fields. "There!" I exclaimed, pointing at the screen. "There's a storm brewing out there in the fields." With the storm spotted on the radar, Ghost Meowscles started the engine of the Hummer and pulled out of the parking lot, heading down the westbound road. We could feel the thrill and anticipation building in the air. The excitement was palpable as we drove towards the storm. We were both feeling the adrenaline rush of our upcoming storm chase adventure, our hearts beating faster with anticipation. I couldn't help but feel a thrill of danger and uncertainty, mixed with a sense of excitement at the thought of experiencing the raw power of nature up close. As we sped down the road towards the storm, the hours seemed to fly by. We talked and laughed, our excitement and anticipation building with every passing mile. Ghost Meowscles reached over and took my hand, giving it a firm squeeze before leaning over to give me a quick kiss on the cheek. I smiled, feeling a wave of affection for him in that moment. We drove on, the Hummer's powerful engine carrying us towards our destination. The landscape changed from suburbs to open fields as we got closer to the storm. We could see the dark, ominous clouds billowing in the distance, and the air felt alive with the promise of something big about to happen. Ghost Meowscles glanced over at me with a wink and a smile, his eyes gleaming with excitement. We were getting closer to the storm, and his enthusiasm was contagious. I grinned back at him, feeling a mix of awe, excitement, and a touch of nervousness about what we were about to encounter. As we drove into the storm, the wind began to pick up, howling around the Hummer and buffeting us from all sides. Lightning flashed overhead, illuminating the dark clouds in brief, brilliant flashes. The sound of thunder echoed all around us, getting louder and closer with each passing moment. The Hummer lurched as we drove deeper into the storm, the strong winds making it difficult to keep the vehicle steady. We were both gripping the seats tightly, the wind and rain making it difficult to see outside. But despite the dangerous conditions, we were both determined to press onwards, eager to get as close to the eye of the storm as possible. We had driven far enough into the storm, and Ghost Meowscles pulled the Hummer over to the left side of the road, bringing it to a halt. We both knew this was our moment to get out and start filming. We grabbed our cameras eagerly, our hearts racing with excitement and adrenaline. We stepped out of the Hummer into the fury of the storm, the rain and wind instantly battering us. We looked around, squinting against the stinging rain, to spot the tornado. The air was thick with moisture and tension, the sound of thunder and wind creating a cacophony around us. Looking to the south, where the clouds were the darkest, we spotted it, the tornado forming in the field of corn. It was an EF2, the second highest rating on the Fujita scale. We both stood in awe for a moment, taking in the size and power of the funnel spinning before us. As the tornado touched the ground, its true force was unleashed. It began ripping up the corn and crops of the field, tearing the ground apart in its path. The sight was both terrifying and awe-inspiring, the raw power of nature on full display before us. We stood and watched, cameras in hand, as the tornado devoured the crops of the field. It was like watching a massive, powerful beast feeding on its prey, tearing up anything in its path. We filmed the scene, capturing the fury and power of the natural phenomenon in all its destructive glory. As we continued to film, we watched as the tornado picked up multiple tractors and corn combine harvesters, lifting them into the air and throwing them through the sky like toys. The force of the wind was incredible, capable of lifting and tossing objects weighing several tons with ease. The sight was both breathtaking and fearsome, a reminder of the immense power of nature. The tornado, fueled by the power of the storm, continued its path of destruction, striking a nearby barn and a large shed. The structures were no match for the ferocious winds, as they were torn to pieces and scattered around the field. The barn and shed were torn apart, and as the tornado raged on, parts of them were caught up in the twister. We watched in awe as the storm continued its trajectory, leaving a path of destruction in its wake. The force of the wind was incredible, creating a vortex of debris and dust that swirled around the field like a living, breathing entity. After 30 long minutes of filming, the tornado finally began to weaken and die down. The funnel slowly began to shrink and disintegrate, the roar of the storm gradually fading away. The field that once stood green and lush was now a mess of rubble and destruction. With the storm now over, we got back into the Hummer, our hearts still racing with adrenaline. We knew we had captured some amazing footage, and we were eager to transfer the videos to the laptop to examine them. With the first storm now over, we turned our attention to the radar display on the laptop. We scrolled through the screen, looking for signs of the next storm. The adrenaline was still coursing through our veins, and we were eager to find another storm to chase. We soon spotted another storm on the radar that showed it had the potential to produce an EF4, an intense and powerful tornado. We knew that an EF4 could pose a serious threat, and we would need to exercise caution when dealing with it. But despite the potential danger, we were determined to get as close to it as possible, drawn by the thrill and excitement of the chase. We drove for another 4 hours through the night to reach the next storm. The hours seemed to pass in a blur, our excitement keeping us awake and focused. We both knew this storm had the potential to be the most powerful we had ever chased, and we were nervous but also thrilled at the prospect of seeing a real EF4 tornado in action. As we drove towards the next storm, we passed through a stretch of countryside with a clear, star-filled sky. We both admired the beauty of the night, marveling at the sight of the stars and the peacefulness of the landscape. In that moment, we began to talk about the future, imagining taking our children on a family road trip and experiencing adventures like this together. The thought warmed our hearts, and we shared a smile. Finally, after hours of driving, we arrived at the storm. We could see the dark clouds looming in the distance, the occasional flash of lightning illuminating the sky. We both felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, knowing that we were about to encounter something powerful and dangerous. With hearts pumping with adrenaline, we drove our Hummer into the storm. The wind was howling, the rain lashing against the windows, and the occasional flash of lightning lit up the sky, making the scene even more ominous and electrifying. We drove beyond the rain curtain, emerging into the eye of the storm itself. The air felt tense and alive, the sound of wind and thunder all around us. We knew the tornado would likely form soon, so we pulled over to the side of the road to prepare and get ready to film. We quickly got out of the Hummer, grabbing our camera equipment as we did so. We could feel the air around us, thick with tension and the promise of something big happening. We both had our cameras ready, eager to capture the spectacle of the storm and the tornado. We looked towards the northeast, and there it was, the tornado forming in the distance. Even from afar, we could tell it was going to be powerful, the size and force of the funnel clearly visible, even in the dim light. We both felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as we prepared to get closer and document this massive storm. The tornado hit the ground, unleashing its full force as it began to tear up everything in its path. Trees, bushes, grass, rocks, and wheat were all ripped up and hurled through the air, caught in the vortex of the twister. The destruction was both awe-inspiring and horrifying, the power of nature on full display before us. We both stood there, cameras in hand, watching as the tornado continued its path of destruction. We filmed the spectacle, the roar of the wind, and the crash of objects as they were hurled through the air. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience that we knew we would never forget. The tornado began to move west, its path of destruction continuing as it ripped up a long fence that stretched across the field. Large sections of the fence were torn up and tossed into the air like paper. Alongside the fence, bushes and grass were also torn up and hurled around, adding to the whirlwind of debris and destruction the storm created. The tornado began to move west, its path of destruction continuing as it ripped up a long fence that stretched across the field. Large sections of the fence were torn up and tossed into the air like paper. Alongside the fence, bushes and grass were also torn up and hurled around, adding to the whirlwind of debris and destruction the storm created. The tornado continued westward, its fury unabated as it struck an abandoned building. The structure was no match for the storm's power, and it began to fall apart, pieces of the roof and walls being torn off and flung to the ground. It was a sight of both terror and awe, the sheer force of the vortex ripping the building to pieces in a matter of moments. The twister continued its path of destruction, striking an abandoned pharmacy next. The building was not spared from the tornado's power, as it began to be torn apart just like the abandoned building. Large chunks of the pharmacy were ripped from its foundation and sent into the air, the swirling vortex consuming the structure with ease. The tornado continued to move west, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. More bushes, grass, and abandoned buildings were caught up in the twister's path, being shredded and reduced to nothing by its immense force. The scene was like a nightmare unfolding before our eyes, the sheer power of the storm on full display as it tore through everything in its path with reckless abandon. The tornado, having caused immense destruction on its path, started moving south and crossed the road directly in front of us. As it did so, its path shifted and it began to rip up wheat from the fields on that side. The sight was like a scene from a disaster movie, the twister tearing through the crops with ease and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The tornado's path continued southward, striking several more abandoned buildings. First, it destroyed an abandoned store, reducing it to rubble and debris. Next, it tore apart an abandoned house, leaving it in shambles. It then moved on to a large warehouse, tearing apart the metal structure as if it was paper. After that, it hit an abandoned restaurant, toppling its walls and sending its roof into the air. Finally, it took out an abandoned car dealership, sending the vehicles inside flying through the air like toys. The tornado continued its destructive path, striking an abandoned ghost town neighborhood. The sight was surreal, as the tornado destroyed what was once a thriving community. The houses were no match for the tornado's fury, as they were torn up and torn apart one by one, adding to the trail of destruction left in its wake. We continued to film the tornado, capturing the destruction as it moved through the abandoned ghost town. The sight was both fascinating and terrifying, the power of the storm on full display as it ravaged the quiet, abandoned neighborhood. As the tornado moved through the ghost town, it tore up one house after another, the wind howling like a giant freight train. The sound was deafening, the force of the storm ripping through the buildings like they were made of paper. We stood there, filming the scene with mixed feelings of awe and horror, the destruction unfolding before us in all its fury. After approximately 50 minutes, the tornado finally began to weaken and die out. The funnel slowly began to shrink, and the violent winds started to slow down, leaving only a trail of destruction in its wake. As the tornado finally faded into nothing, we both felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The experience of witnessing an EF4 storm was intense and draining. Once the storm had passed and the tornado had died out, we both were filled with excitement and a sense of accomplishment. We couldn't wait to review the footage we had taken, and our triumph was evident in our celebration as we hugged and kissed, sharing in the joy of having experienced such an intense storm together. With the footage safely retrieved, we got back into the Hummer and began to transfer everything onto the laptop, eager to see the results of our efforts. We could barely contain our excitement and anticipation, knowing that we had captured something truly special. With the footage safely transferred, our thoughts turned to our stomachs, which were beginning to rumble. After the adrenaline-fueled excitement of the storm chaser, we realized that we were both hungry and in need of some food. I confessed to Ghost Meowscles that I was feeling so hungry, it was as if I had the same appetite as Homer Simpson from The Simpsons. I jokingly told him that I could probably devour an enormous amount of food in one sitting, just like Homer did in that one episode. We both laughed at the comparison, enjoying the light-hearted moment after the intensity of the storm chase. Ghost Meowscles nodded in agreement, admitting that he too was extremely hungry. We both realized that we needed to find some food soon to satisfy our rumbling stomachs. Looking at the GPS, we saw a town on the map that was just 3 miles away to the southwest from where we were on the road. We decided to drive there and see if we could find somewhere to eat. We drove to a local burger restaurant and pulled up to the drive-thru. We both were looking forward to getting some food, and the sight of the restaurant's neon sign made our mouths water even more. We pulled up to the menu and began to look through the options, discussing what we wanted to order. Our combined hunger was so intense that we ended up ordering an absurdly large amount of food. We ordered 5 burgers, 5 fries, 5 wings, 5 tenders, 4 onion wings, 5 pies, 3 tater tots, 4 chicken sandwiches, and most importantly, 10 salads and 12 protein shakes. Despite the massive order, we were very serious about maintaining our health and knew that the protein shakes would help balance out the less healthy options. We pulled into the parking lot and parked the Hummer. The aroma of the freshly cooked food filled our nostrils, making our mouths water even more. With our massive order in hand, we began to eat, savoring each bite of the delicious burgers, fries, wings, and other items we had ordered. The food was satisfying our intense cravings, and we both agreed that it tasted incredible. We began to devour the food we had ordered, our taste buds dancing with each bite. The burgers were juicy, the fries were crispy, the wings were spicy, and the protein shakes were refreshing. We both were in a zone, not saying a word as we ate, completely focused on satisfying our hunger. After a few minutes of silent eating, we started to slow down, our stomachs feeling comfortably full. We both exhaled deeply, satisfied with the meal we had just enjoyed. Despite the large amount of food we had ordered, we both felt satisfied and energized, the nutritious protein shakes helping to balance out the less healthy items. As we continued to eat, we also took a few bites of the salads we had ordered. The crisp, fresh vegetables provided a much-needed crunch and balanced out the heavier items in our meal. We washed down the salads with sips of our protein shakes, enjoying the refreshing, fruity taste, while also knowing that they were supporting our health and wellness goals. Once we had finished eating, we sat back in the Hummer and took a moment to relax. We knew from experience that rushing back on the road after eating a large meal could lead to stomach aches, so we gave ourselves time to let the food digest before getting back on the road. We sat in the Hummer, holding hands and watching the stunning sunset unfold before us. The sky was painted with vibrant hues of orange, pink, and purple, and the setting sun was casting a warm, golden glow over the landscape. We both felt a sense of peace and contentment, grateful for the moment of tranquility after the excitement of the storm chase. As we continued to watch the sunset together, we leaned over and shared a few kisses from time to time. The moment was romantic and intimate, and our connection deepened as the sky grew darker and the stars began to appear. As we were enjoying the moment, an alarm suddenly went off on the computer, breaking the peaceful silence. It caught us off guard, and we both turned our attention towards the screen to see what the alert was. We both looked at the screen in surprise as the alert indicated an EF5 tornado forming in the storm we had just passed through earlier. The news was unexpected and alarming, as we knew that an EF5 was the most powerful rating there was on the enhanced Fujita scale. The news of the EF5 tornado forming sent a mix of fear and excitement running through us. On one hand, we were scared at the thought of encountering such a powerful storm, but on the other hand, we were also excited because we had brought a tornado probe specifically for this type of situation. The prospect of having to drive into the path of an EF5 tornado and dropping a probe into its vortex was undeniably terrifying. We both knew how dangerous it would be, but the thrill of capturing the data from the heart of the storm was also enticing. Despite our fear, we knew that obtaining data from an EF5 storm could be crucial in predicting future extreme weather events and potentially saving lives. So, with a mix of trepidation and determination, we put the Hummer back into gear and started driving back down the road we had come in on, heading back towards the storm. As we arrived back at the storm, we could see that the EF5 tornado was already on the ground to our northwest, but was moving in a direction that meant we were directly in its path. This was both a blessing and a curse, as it meant we were in a dangerous position, but also that we had the perfect opportunity to deploy the probe we had brought for this purpose. We both quickly exited the Hummer and rushed to the trunk, our hearts racing with adrenaline. We fumbled the latch for a moment, but after a few tries, it finally opened, and we quickly lifted out the probe, our hands shaking slightly from both excitement and nervousness. We quickly got the probe deployed and activated, our fingers working with a sense of urgency. Once it was set and ready to go, we promptly hopped back into the Hummer and began driving east, making a beeline back towards our hometown, which was a good 50 miles away. As we drove away, I couldn't help but glance back every few minutes to see if the tornado would pick up the probe. The wait felt like an eternity, but eventually, after a few minutes, we could see the probe getting lifted into the air, clearly caught up in the vortex of the tornado. We both watched as the data from the probe began to pour in, displayed in 4 different sections on the computer screen. We saw numbers and codes corresponding to the sensors as they started to gather the important tornado data we needed. The flood of data confirmed that the sensors and the probe were working as planned, gathering valuable information about the tornado's velocity and rotation rates. We both cheered in excitement and relief, knowing that we had successfully collected the data we needed. Our initial feelings of triumph and excitement were quickly replaced by a sense of urgency as we realized that the tornado was chasing us. We watched as the massive twister moved quickly towards our location, the sight simultaneously awe-inspiring and terrifying. Feeling a surge of panic, I yelled to Ghost Meowscles to floor it, our adrenaline levels skyrocketing as we both realized the imminent danger we were in. The Hummer's engine roared as he floored the accelerator, the car speeding up to try and escape the quickly approaching tornado behind us. As we sped away, the EF5 tornado continued to wreak havoc behind us, tearing up trees, grass, rocks, bushes, and crops in its path. The sight in the rearview mirror was harrowing, the power of the storm on full display as it seemed to relentlessly pursue us down the road. As the tornado gained ground on us, it continued its destructive path, ripping up abandoned buildings along the way. The sight was like something out of a disaster movie. Buildings that had once stood tall now lay in ruins, victims of the storm's fury and power. The storm continued to throw obstacles in our path as a massive tractor was suddenly dropped onto the left side of the road directly in front of us. We quickly veered to the right to avoid it, barely avoiding a catastrophic collision. As we swerved to avoid the tractor, we also had to contend with other pieces of debris that the tornado had scattered across the road. The storm seemed to be toying with us, as if it knew we were desperate to escape. Every time we managed to dodge one piece of debris, another would suddenly appear, forcing us to make sharp turns and quick maneuvers to avoid coming too close to the dangerous twister. The chase felt like a game of cat and mouse, with the tornado taking the role of a menacing predator and us as terrified prey. As the chase continued, it felt as if the tornado had become enraged after sucking up the probe, like it was determined to get revenge on us. The destruction and speed of the storm increased, and the sense that we were being relentlessly pursued by the tornado's path of fury grew stronger and stronger. Our level of panic grew stronger as we kept speeding down the road, the sound of the engine roaring in our ears as we desperately tried to keep ahead of the furious storm. Ghost Meowscles gripped the steering wheel tightly, his face etched with concentration and fear. The winds of the tornado were intense, and the Hummer rocked, rolled, and wobbled precariously as we fought to keep control of the vehicle. Our fear was palpable as we realized that our only hope of safety was to reach our tornado-proof house, located a few miles away. We continued to swerve and dodge debris dropped onto the road by the aggressive tornado, our hearts in our throats each time we were forced to make a last-minute maneuver to avoid disaster. Meanwhile, the tornado itself showed no signs of slowing down, each piece of debris it tore up making its wrath all the more apparent as it continued its relentless pursuit of us. Ghost Meowscles squeezed my hand tightly, his touch a reassuring presence amidst the chaos. With his other hand on the steering wheel, he shot a quick glance my way, his eyes filled with determination and an unspoken message of love. In that brief moment, we both knew that, no matter what might happen, we would face it together, united in our love for one another. Tears welled up in my eyes, the emotions of the moment becoming overwhelming. Fear, love, concern for each other, and the sheer adrenaline of the situation all mixed together, leaving me feeling a whirlwind of intense feelings. But as Ghost Meowscles' hand remained clasped in mine, I drew strength from his presence, finding solace in his unwavering support and love. The chase had gone on for what felt like an eternity, with the Hummer speeding away from the relentless tornado for 30 long minutes. Finally, we made a sharp turn to the southeast, the road taking us back into our small town. As we sped into the town, a sense of relief washed over us, knowing that we were getting closer to the neighborhood and our tornado-proof house. Ghost Meowscles kept his foot on the gas, and we were practically flying down the streets towards our destination. We finally pulled into the neighborhood and came to a stop in the garage, breathing a collective sigh of relief. We had successfully made it home unscathed, despite having been chased for miles by a raging tornado. We rushed inside the house, our hearts still pounding from the adrenaline of the chase. We made our way upstairs to the bedroom and quickly went to the window, peering out to watch the tornado as it approached in the distance. We stood at the window, holding our breaths as the tornado drew ever closer to the town. Our fingers were crossed, silently praying that not only our house, but all the other tornado-proof houses in the area would withstand the storm's fury. The tension was palpable as we waited and watched. As the tornado approached, getting closer and closer, Ghost Meowscles and I held each other tightly, our bodies pressed together. Fear and anticipation were etched on our faces as we waited anxiously for the storm to make its impact. Within moments, the tornado engulfed the house, and all visibility vanished as the only thing we could see was the swirling vortex outside the window. The noise was deafening, a roar like 1,000 freight trains. It was both terrifying and awe-inspiring witnessing such raw power so close up. Thankfully, despite the intensity of the storm, our house held up, its tornado-proof construction proving to be our savior. We let out a collective sigh of relief, grateful that the house had withstood the powerful onslaught of the relentless tornado. We stood transfixed, watching as the wall of the tornado relentlessly spun by outside the window. It was a terrifying sight, seeing bits and pieces of debris being sucked into the vortex, including parts of fences, small tree branches, trash bins, small cars, signs, parts of billboards, boxes, and more. We clung on to each other, hoping that the house would continue to hold up against the storm's fury. The tornado seemed unstoppable until suddenly we spotted the eye of the storm. It was as if time had slowed down for a moment as we stared at the calm center of the vortex. It was an eerie sight, surrounded by the chaos of the tornado, but it also gave us a brief sense of respite. We couldn't help but smile in surprise as we caught a glimpse of the eye of the tornado through the window. It was an unexpected moment of respite amidst the chaos, and we shared a momentary look of shared relief and disbelief. In the midst of the chaos, we instinctively grabbed our phones and started recording the moment, capturing the rare sight of the eye of the tornado on video. The surprise and excitement were clear in our voices as we cheered, thrilled to have witnessed such a unique and fleeting phenomenon. Caught up in the moment, we wrapped each other in a tight embrace, our kisses filled with excitement and gratitude. We couldn't wait to share this incredible experience with our kids when they returned from their visit with Aunt Bonfi and Aunt Chiku. The eye of the tornado lasted for 20 minutes, giving us a brief respite from the storm's fury, but soon enough, the stronger, most powerful side of the tornado roared back to life. We could see the intensity increase as the vortex picked up speed and power once again. With the more powerful side of the tornado roaring back to life, the debris began to kick up again, swirling around outside the window. We watched with trepidation, knowing that the worst was yet to come. After 30 tense minutes, the tornado began to move away from the town, heading southeast. We couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief as we watched it move further away, grateful that our town had escaped the worst of the storm's wrath. With the tornado moving further away, we turned our attention back to the neighborhood. To our relief, all the houses in the area appeared to still be standing in one piece, a testament to the strength of the tornado-proof construction. A collective sigh of relief washed over us as we took in the sight of the undamaged houses. Once the storm had passed and the adrenaline rush subsided, we took the opportunity to change into our pajamas and get ready for bed. We were exhausted after the eventful day, and the thought of rest and relaxation was incredibly appealing. As we embraced one another, sharing a few tender kisses, we couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. With the data successfully gathered from the tornadoes, we knew that we had taken a step towards saving lives, and the thrill of storm chasing had been an adventure we would never forget. We climbed into bed, our bodies tired but our hearts still buzzing with excitement. We were eager to send the data we had collected to the scientists who needed it, knowing that this information could potentially make a real difference in predicting and preparing for future extreme weather events. After a few moments of laying there, our minds still buzzing with adrenaline and excitement, we gradually began to succumb to sleep. The weight of the day's events and the exhaustion from the chase finally caught up with us, and we drifted off into a deep and peaceful slumber.